He held the dying alien princess. His healing touch drew wounds closed and light. The sky above the shattered ridge glowed the color of bruised peaches, soft purple layered over molten orange, as if the atmosphere itself was trying to remember what a peaceful sunset was supposed to look like. Ethan Hale tasted metal and ash in the back of his throat while he stumbled over a cracked strut of alien alloy, his medpack thumping against his spine with each step. Around him, the battlefield had gone strangely quiet. No railgun shrieks, no thunder of orbital strikes, just a faint ticking of cooling wreckage and the occasional crackle of distant fires chewing on broken starships. The silence felt wrong. Warzones weren't supposed to go silent. They either roared or whispered threats. This hush felt like the pause between heartbeats when a doctor decides whether to keep trying or call the time of death. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. Ethan's left gauntlet flickered with the soft blue of his triage HUD, icons pulsing as it scanned for biometrics among the rubble. The readings spiked and faded, confused by static from wrecked energy cores and the strange resonance of Thalari crystal architecture half buried in the dirt. The Thalari, for all their grace and shimmering cities, built ships that died badly. Fragments around him still glowed faintly with stored light, as if they were trying to remember the shapes they once held. Ethan's boots crunched on glassy dust that had once been a corridor. People had run here, panicked, bleeding. His jaw tightened. The Joint Task Force's retreat order still sat at the edge of his vision like a ghosted warning. He had acknowledged it, but his feet had kept moving in the opposite direction. Last sweep, he muttered into the thin air, his voice swallowed by the vastness. Then I go. No one answered. His comms were dead, fried when the cruiser Viridian Star had taken that final hit and cracked open in orbit, pouring flame and bodies into the upper atmosphere. He had ridden one of the escape drops, more coffin than pod, and somehow punched through the fall with only a dislocated shoulder and a rattled brain. The Thalari flagship had come down nearby, a white-silver spear shattering against the ridge like ice thrown at stone. The Alliance command had declared a lost cause. Anyone still alive in the wreck would be beyond saving. Ethan's training said they were probably right. His heart refused to listen. The HUD chirped again, sharper this time, a green bar surging high enough to stab into the center of his vision. Ethan froze. Got you, he whispered, turning slowly until the bar peaked. 15 meters downslope, half hidden beneath a curled wing of fractured hull, a faint shape glimmered. When he jogged closer, his boots slid on loose shards, sending a skitter of sound down the incline. The shape resolved into a body, slender, armored in what looked like woven light and metallic thread, skin the color of clean morning sky. Long pale hair fanned around a face that was both alien and heartbreakingly familiar in its vulnerability. She was curled on her side, one arm trapped under a slab of hull that had pinned her at the waist. Her chest rose and shallow, uneven breaths, each one a struggle. Ethan's training kicked in, forcing down the tremor that tried to start his hands. Assess, stabilize, extricate. Be the calm in the storm. He slid to his knees beside her and touched 2 fingers to the hollow beneath her jaw, searching for a pulse. Her skin was cooler than a human's, almost like ceramic warmed by sunlight, but their faint fluttering fast. Alive. Hey, he said softly, not sure if her people understood Terran standard, but needing to say something human. I've got you. Her eyelids fluttered, revealing irises that glowed with an inner luminescence, a pale gold ringed with deep violet. For a moment she seemed to be staring through him, focusing on some point beyond the sky, but then her gaze sharpened and locked onto his face. Her lips parted, shaping a word that his suit translators scrambled to parse. A half-second later, a quiet, harmonic voice murmured in his ear, overlaying her real one. Human, she breathed. You returned. Ethan blinked. He had never seen her before, not in person. The Thalari royalty were mostly holograms on briefing vids, distant and ethereal. But something in the way she said return tugged at his memory like a thread caught between fingers. First time I've been planet-side here, he replied gently, glancing at the crushed metal pinning her. "Don't move. You're badly injured. I need to get this off you." She tried to laugh, but it came out as a brutal cough and a small, pained sound. A smear of dark, shimmering blood stained the corner of her mouth. It looked almost like spilled starlight. "I know," she whispered. "My name is Leora, daughter of the Luminous Crown. I think your people call that word princess." Ethan's heart stuttered. Princess. Of course. The coronation ceremony had been on every news feed a year ago. A young Thalarier stepping forward, promising unity with humanity against the void-born threat. He remembered watching from a hospital ward on Titan, bandaged and groggy after a frontline deployment. Remembered thinking she looked too fragile to carry a war on her shoulders. Now she was here, broken in the dirt, in his arms. "Okay, Leora," he said, forcing calm into his voice, into his breathing. "I'm Ethan, combat medic, Alliance 6 Fleet. I'm going to get you out from under this, but you probably have internal injuries. We move wrong, and we might—" He hesitated, not wanting to say the word. "Lose you. Fail. We need to be careful." Her hand twitched against the rubble, fingers flexing as if reaching for something. "We are already past careful, Ethan of Earth," she murmured. "The impact tore my conduits. My light is leaking. I can feel it going." Her eyes dipped to her abdomen where her armor had cracked open like shattered porcelain. Beneath the broken plates, Ethan saw raw, luminous tissue flickering, like veins of lightning trapped in glass, pulsing weakly. Each pulse sent a faint glow seeping between his own gloved fingers when he brushed the area, checking for hemorrhage. He had seen human guts before, seen the insides of soldiers and civilians spread out on operating tables and makeshift tents. He had never seen anything like this, a body wired with light, wounds that flickered instead of bled. His med scanner tried to interpret the readings and failed, icons jittering and spinning into error states. Wrong species, wrong biochemistry. The protocols told him to stabilize mechanically, pressure, brace, immobilize, and hope a specialist could do more later. There would be no later if he walked away. Ethan swallowed, tasting dust. He shoved aside the part of his brain screaming that this was impossible, that one man could not hold together an alien princess with a medpack and stubbornness. "I'm not going to let you die here," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. "You didn't cross half the galaxy just to bleed out under a wing." Unexpectedly, her lips curved in the barest hint of a smile. "Your species," she whispered, "always making promises to the impossible." He set his pack down, fingers moving in automatic patterns as he pulled out braces, sealant foam, microfracture stabilizers. "Human tools for human bodies. We specialize in it," he answered, but his voice shook. He braced his shoulder against the slab of hull, engaging the servos in his exosuit. Muscles and machinery strained together, groaning. The metal shifted, lifted a few centimeters. Leora hissed, eyes clenching shut, as pressure changed across her crushed legs and hips. "Almost there," Ethan grunted. The suit whined in protest, its power reserves already low from the crash. His shoulder burned. Sweat blurred his vision. He thought of leaving, of marking her coordinates and hoping a rescue craft would come. But he knew the fleet had pulled back. The ridge was in contested space, crawling with debris and possible enemy pickups. No one was coming. He heaved once more with everything he had. The slab lurched upward enough for him to shove a collapsed strut underneath as a makeshift brace. Then he slid around to Leora's side, hands hovering over her. "I need to see the damage," he said. "Permission to access your armors? Releases?" Her lashes fluttered. "Granted," she breathed. Her fingers brushed a small emblem at her collar, an intricate sigil that lit under her touch. Segments of armor peeled back in response, folding away like flower petals, revealing more of that luminescent flesh. Ethan's breath caught. The fracture across her abdomen was worse than he'd thought. Luminous conduits torn, energy leaking in slow waves of fading light. His med scanner threw another error. "Of course you don't have a setting for magic glow alien," Ethan muttered, mostly to keep his hands from shaking. He reached for a sterilized pad, intending to apply gentle pressure, but the moment the pad touched her skin, her entire body arched. A flare of golden light surged up through her wound, racing along his gloved fingers and into his forearm. His HUD flickered wildly. For a second, Ethan felt like he was sinking into warm water, every nerve awash in tingling heat. He jerked back on instinct, heart hammering. The world snapped into focus again, the broken ridge, the ruined ship, Leora's labored breathing. His gauntlet smoked faintly where the light had touched it, the surface etched with hairline cracks. "Do not pull away," Leora gasped, reaching for him. Her hand seized his wrist with surprising strength. Her skin against his glove felt like holding a live wire that had learned how to be gentle. "Your biofield, it resonates. When you touched me, the flow changed." It slowed. Her eyes locked onto his, luminous and fierce. "Please, try again." Ethan stared at his cracked gauntlet, at the faint steam rising from it. Every practical part of his mind screamed that this was insane, that he was not qualified for alien energy surgery, that he could fry his nervous system or melt his bones. But there was a clarity in Leora's gaze that cut through his fear. She wasn't asking from panic. She was asking from recognition, from the kind of understanding that came from living with a body of light. "Okay," he said slowly, "but we're doing this my way, steady, controlled. If I pass out, this whole plan's useless." He stripped off the damaged gauntlet, tossing it aside. The evening air kissed his bare hand, cool and gritty. His palm trembled slightly, betraying nerves he tried to hide with a wry smile. "Hope your people are up to date on hygiene protocols." Her lips quirked faintly. "We bathe in starlight," she murmured, "but I will trust your field medic standards." He exhaled once, then pressed his hand gently over the fractured glow of her wound. The world narrowed to warmth and light. At first it felt like touching the surface of a river at night, cool yet alive, currents sliding past his fingers. Then the sensation deepened, seeping into his skin, threads of glowing warmth rising to meet him. Leora gasped, eyes widening, as the light around his hand flared brighter. Ethan's breath hitched. He could feel something like a pattern etched into her energy, frayed at the edges. The torn conduits were not just physical. They were like shredded lines in a complex song. His own heartbeat grew loud in his ears. Without meaning to, he synced his breathing to the rhythm of that internal music, matching its tempo, smoothing his inhales and exhales to fill the gaps where the pattern stuttered. The warmth surged in response, flowing along his veins, pooling in his chest. His fingers tingled, then burned, not with pain, but with an intensity that demanded focus. "Ethan," Leora whispered, voice shaking. "You are smoothing the turbulence. You are anchoring my light." "Good," he said through gritted teeth. "Let's keep doing that." As he concentrated, his HUD faded into irrelevance at the edges of his vision. He no longer cared about error icons or protocol alerts. All that existed was his hand pressed over that wound, the fragile body beneath his touch, and the subtle, intricate dance of energy he could somehow sense now, like feeling the weave of a fabric by brushing it with closed eyes. His human nervous system had never been designed for this, but it adapted on the fly because that was what humans did. They improvised with whatever the universe threw at them. The light around his hand began to change. What had been a chaotic flicker slowly transformed into steadier pulses, each one rising to meet his heartbeat. Leora's breathing evened out, the tight grimace on her face easing. Fine cracks along her abdomen drew inward, edges knitting like strands pulled together by invisible threads. Ethan watched in awe as luminous tissue slowly bridged gaps that had yawned open minutes ago. "This should not be possible," she whispered, wonder threading through her words. "Our healers train for cycles to touch the light without burning. You're doing it by instinct." Ethan let out a shaky laugh. "Yeah, while humanity's skill tree is, mostly stubbornness and dumb luck." Sweat beaded on his forehead, trickling down the side of his face. His arm ached from holding his hand steady so long. Some of the warmth now felt like heat collecting under his skin, edges of his perception fuzzing. How much longer? Not much, she breathed. Do you feel the frayed threads there? Her eyes shifted as if she could see inside herself. Ethan focused where she seemed to indicate, sensing a rough patch in the smooth rhythm, a snag in the energy flow. Yeah, he whispered. Like a knot. Guide it, she said. Imagine unfolding it. Your thoughts are loud to my light. It listens. He sucked in a steadying breath and pictured his fingers gently smoothing wrinkles from sheet, untying a stubborn knot in a rope without tearing it. The warmth surged, following his intention like water, following the shape of a channel. The snag loosened. Light flowed more freely, washing over his hand in a wave that nearly stole his breath. For a heartbeat, he felt weightless, suspended in a sea of golden glow, as if the ridge, the war, the entire galaxy had fallen away. Then the sensation ebbed, receding into Leora's body. The glow around his hand dimmed to a gentle shimmer. Ethan swayed, catching himself with his free hand against the ground. His palms still rested over her abdomen, but the light beneath it was now contained, pulsing evenly. The fracture had narrowed to a thin seam of pale luminescence, no longer gaping. He realized distantly that his hand no longer hurt. Instead, it felt different, like it remembered the pattern of her light and was reluctant to let go. Leora's eyes were clear now, the fevered cloudiness gone. She studied his face with a focus that made him self-conscious. You risked your life, she said softly, for an enemy royal. Alliance partner, he corrected automatically, though he wasn't sure the politics still held after both their ships had fallen from the sky. And I'm a medic. That's what we do. We keep people breathing, no matter whose anthem they sang last week. Her gaze softened. I saw your species in our archives, she murmured. Numbers and data. Reports of your tenacity. Improvisation in crisis. But I did not understand what your commanders meant when they said, humans will throw themselves between death and a stranger without calculating the odds. Now I do. Ethan tried to brush off the compliment, but exhaustion made his smile crooked. We're kind of addicted to second chances. Comes from living on a planet that tried to kill us for a few million years. He glanced toward the fractured sky, where faint streaks of debris still burned as they fell. Speaking of odds, we're still in a hot zone. Any enemy scouts sweep through, they won't care that we just had a nice cross-cultural healing moment. She followed his gaze, expression tightening. The Voidborn will come, she agreed. They hunger for fallen ships, for the technologies left behind. We must not be here when they arrive. She shifted, testing her restored strength. Pain flickered across her features, but her hands pushed against the ground. Can you help me stand? He hesitated, scanning her quickly. The major wound had stabilized, but there could be dozens of microfractures, internal bruising, unseen damage. Moving her could undo everything they just stitched together with light and human stubbornness. On the other hand, staying put was a guaranteed death sentence. Yeah, he said finally, getting his arm under her shoulders. But we go slow. You lean on me. If anything feels wrong, you tell me immediately. I did not sign up to accidentally unknit a princess. A soft laugh, surprisingly warm, escaped her. Agreed. He helped her sit first, her weight slight but steady against him. The moment she lifted away from the ground, the broken hull grated ominously, shifting as if resentful of losing its captive. Dust drifted around them. Ethan braced, scanning the slope for a safer path. The ridge above them had a narrow cut, a kind of natural ramp where shattered rock formed a jagged stair. If they could reach it, they might get to higher ground, maybe even line of sight to whatever remained of his escape pod beacon. On 3, he said quietly. 1, as he counted, his hand brushed her side again, fingers inadvertently grazing the edge of the healed seam. A pulse of light answered his touch, not frantic this time, but gentle, like a heartbeat acknowledging another. Ethan felt it spread through his chest, a lingering echo of the connection they had formed. For a second their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, a shared awareness that their lives were now woven together by more than circumstance. 3, he finished, voice softer than he intended. They rose together, unsteady but upright, framed by the glowing wreckage and the bruised sky above. Somewhere in the distance, a low, inhuman hum began to vibrate through the air, the sound of void-born engines waking, sniffing for salvage and survivors. Ethan tightened his grip on Leora's shoulders, his bare hand still tingling with the memory of her light. "Let's move, Your Highness," he murmured. "I just dragged you back from the edge. Not letting anything take you now." Her golden-violet gaze flashed with determination as she leaned into him, matching his first careful step. "Then we walk, Ethan of Earth," she said, "together, until the light decides otherwise." They started up the fractured slope, two figures against the wreck of a war, the glow of her mending wounds softly illuminating the path beneath their feet. The ridge trembled beneath Ethan's boots as he guided Leora upward, her weight light against his side, yet steadied by a quiet determination that hadn't been there moments ago. The faint glow under her armor cast soft halos across the jagged stones, painting their narrow path in warm gold. The world around them felt bruised, air thick with ash, the horizon cut into cruel shapes by broken starships. But the small bubble of light they carried felt stubbornly alive. Leora's breaths came slow and controlled, but Ethan could hear the strain hidden in each one. Even healed, she was far from recovered. Her legs wobbled unevenly, occasionally forcing him to tighten his arm around her waist to keep her balanced. She never complained, only offered a faint nod when he glanced at her, as if to say she still had enough strength to move forward even if the universe insisted otherwise. Behind them, the hum grew louder, a low, droning pulse that set Ethan's teeth on edge. Void-born scavengers. He'd heard recordings of their engines, but hearing them in person was worse, like a giant creature breathing just behind your ear. He didn't tell Leora how close they sounded. She already knew. Her fingers gripped his forearm slightly tighter each time the hum dipped in pitch. "We will not outrun them in the open," she murmured, not in fear but calculation. "They see heat. They smell broken energy signatures." "Yeah," Ethan muttered, adjusting her weight as he stepped over a split boulder. "Which is why we're not planning on staying in the open." He found what he was looking for, a narrow, cave-like fissure in the ridge wall, carved by an old thermal eruption centuries ago. The opening was partly obscured by slabs of fallen metal from the Thalari ship, but there was enough space for two people to slide through. Ethan ducked inside first, bracing Leora as she followed. The temperature dropped immediately, cool darkness curling around them like a quiet breath. Inside, the space widened into a modest cavern. Thin strands of bioluminescent fungi glowed faint blue along the ceiling, casting just enough light to reveal uneven walls and a flat area near the back. Ethan eased Leora down onto a smooth stone, careful not to jostle her healing seam. The moment she sat, her shoulders sagged as if she'd been holding herself together through pure willpower. The fading golden light at her abdomen flickered but didn't destabilize, just dimmed from exhaustion. "You pushed past your limits getting here," Ethan said softly. "Rest. We'll be safe here for a bit." Leora gave him a tired smile. "Safe is relative, but this is better than the ridge." Her eyes drifted to his bare hand as he checked the seam of her wound. "Your touch still carries the resonance." Ethan opened and closed his fingers, feeling the odd warmth still lingering in his bones. "Yeah, not sure what that means yet." "It means," she said quietly, "that our energies intertwined in a way that does not happen easily, or accidentally." He swallowed. "Is that bad?" She shook her head slowly. "No, just rare." She studied him for a moment, her gaze soft but piercing. "You stabilized me when my own light had given up. That kind of connection leaves echoes." He looked away, suddenly aware of how close they sat, their knees nearly touching. "Well, I've always been good at leaving a strong impression." A soft laugh escaped her, faint but warm. It was the first sound since the crash that felt like it belonged to something other than war. But the moment of peace didn't last long. Ethan's HUD flickered with static, then sharpened into a proximity alert. The Voidborn signal had grown stronger, sweeping across the ridge like a mechanical predator sniffing for wounded prey. He tensed, scanning the cave entrance. The hum vibrated through the stone floor now. Too close. They're tracking the residual glow from my injury, Leora murmured, brows drawing together. Ethan thought fast. Can you dim it? To nothing? No. Her hand hovered over the luminous seam. It is life energy. Suppressing it fully would be like asking a heart to grow silent. Then let's mask it. He moved quickly, pulling thermal blankets, metal scraps, and a collapsed emergency tarp from his pack. In minutes, he'd built a crude shield wall of reflective layers, redirecting outward heat signatures, scrambling shapes. It wasn't perfect, but it might buy them time. As he worked, Leora watched him with growing fascination. You solve problems like water, she said. You flow around obstacles rather than break through them. That's the nicest way anyone's ever called me stubborn, Ethan replied. It was meant as a compliment. He sank down beside her again, breathing hard. The hum outside swelled, then dipped search patterns. The Voidborn were close enough now that faint vibrating dust sifted down from the cave ceiling. We may need to hide deeper, Leora whispered. There is no deeper. Ethan shook his head. We're boxed in. Silence stretched between them, tense, fragile. Then Leora shifted, her expression tightening with resolve. There is something I can do, but it may frighten you. Try me, he said. She reached toward the seam of light on her abdomen. The connection between us, your resonance to my energy, it formed a bridge. A small one. I can widen it. If you allow it. Ethan blinked. Widen? What does that? I can cloak us, she said. Not by dimming my light, but by sharing it. Spreading it between us weakens its individual signature. The Voidborn will read it as ambient radiation instead of two living beings. She met his eyes, voice softening. But it requires contact. Direct contact. His heart thudded, the meaning landing heavily. You mean my bare hand? She nodded. Over the wound. As before. He stared at his palm, still faintly warm, faintly changed. Fear twitched in his chest. Will it hurt you? No, she whispered. Only me, if we do nothing. He hesitated only a moment longer before shifting closer, sitting knee to knee with her. He raised his hand slowly, giving her time to change her mind. She didn't. Her breath trembled as he placed his palm gently against the seam of her healing wound. Light surged instantly, not as violent as before, but deeper. It traveled up his arm like a warm tide, filling hollow spaces inside him he hadn't known were empty. Leora inhaled sharply, her hand flying to his wrist, anchoring them together. Ethan's breath hitched. He wasn't just feeling her energy, he was feeling her. Her fear, controlled and compressed beneath layers of duty. Her pain, softened now by his presence. Her fierce determination not to die while her people still needed her. It all washed through him, intimate and overwhelming. Their surroundings dimmed as golden light enveloped them both, wrapping their forms in a sphere of soft glow. The cavern walls reflected the radiance like distant stars. Outside, the Voidborn hum entered a crescendo. Inside, their shared breath became the only sound. Leora's voice reached him not through ears, but through the connection itself, gentle, nearly breaking. Ethan, hold steady. If you falter, the cloak collapses. I'm here, he whispered aloud and through the link. Not going anywhere. She leaned into him, forehead brushing his temple. The light pulsed once, twice, then steadied, becoming a steady golden halo around them. Ethan felt his heartbeat synchronize again with hers, two rhythms weaving into one, the cloak forming like a protective shell around their joined energies. Footsteps, inhuman, metallic, scraped across the ridge above them. Voidborn. Ethan tensed, muscles coiled, every instinct screaming to grab a weapon, shield Leora with his body, do something. But the cloak demanded stillness. Presence. Connection. Leora's fingers tightened gently around his wrist, her silent reassurance flowing through him like warm wind. The hum rose to a piercing pitch, the Voidborn scanners sweeping directly over the cave entrance. Ethan held his breath. Leora held him. The hum passed, slowly, reluctantly, then faded into the distance. They stayed still long after the sound disappeared, neither daring to break the connection until the danger was fully gone. Only when Ethan's HUD finally dimmed its alert did Leora exhale shakily, her forehead dropping lightly against his shoulder. "You did not falter," she murmured. "Neither did you," he murmured back. The connection between them softened, drifting like a dying ember before fading entirely. Ethan's hand slipped away from her wound, though it resisted slightly, as if reluctant to detach. The golden cloak dimmed into nothing. Silence returned to the cavern. But this time it felt different, not empty but shared. Leora lifted her head, her eyes glowing softly even in exhaustion. "We live because we trusted each other with our light," she said quietly. "In my culture, that is rare, sacred." Ethan swallowed, suddenly aware of how close they were again. "Well," he said softly, "welcome to humanity. We share everything at the edge of death, fear, hope, even energy fields apparently." Something like a smile ghosted across her lips. "And you, Ethan Hale, you have a light stronger than you know." He felt heat rise to his face and looked toward the cave entrance to hide it. "We should rest. Both of us. When your strength returns, we need a plan to get off this ridge." "Yes," she agreed, leaning back against the stone wall. "But for now, we breathe." She closed her eyes, trusting him completely. And Ethan, heart still sinking faintly to a rhythm that wasn't his, kept watch beside her, knowing with absolute conviction that he would not let anything harm her again. Not the Voidborn, not the war, not the galaxy itself. Ethan didn't realize he'd fallen asleep until a faint pulse of warmth brushed the back of his hand, like someone tapping gently from inside a dream. His eyes snapped open, instincts firing, his hand already reaching for the emergency knife strapped to his thigh, but he stopped when he saw the source of the warmth. Leora, her light, which had dimmed to almost nothing after their escape, now shimmered subtly beneath her armor. Not bright, but steady, alive. She lay curled where he'd last seen her, but her breathing had deepened, less ragged, the tension drained from her shoulders. Her pale hair cascaded like liquid moonlight across the stone floor. "Resting," she murmured without opening her eyes. "Not wounded. You need not grab your blade." Ethan exhaled, tension unwinding from his muscles. "I wasn't grabbing it," he lied. One corner of her mouth curved. "Of course not." He checked his HUD. Its internal systems had stabilized somewhat, though half the display remained stubbornly fuzzy. The timestamp told him they'd slept for a little under 2 hours. Not nearly enough, but better than nothing. The cave was silent except for the faint hum of bioluminescent fungi overhead. Too silent. Ethan sat straighter, scanning the entrance again, listening for the Voidborn's mechanical drones. Nothing. Only distant wind. Leora slowly sat up, wincing as stiff muscles protested. Ethan reached out instinctively to steady her. She accepted the support with quiet grace. "You're healing?" he asked softly. "Stable," she answered. "Because of you." Her golden-violet gaze settled on him, warm and intent. "Our link, it still echoes between us. I can feel your heartbeat like a faint drum, even now." Ethan's stomach fluttered uncomfortably. Or maybe not uncomfortably. "Is that normal for your people?" "It is normal," she said slowly, "the way supernovas are normal. Rare, beautiful, dangerous when mishandled." "Oh," Ethan said faintly. "That's fine. Totally fine." "You are not fine," she said with quiet amusement. "You are overthinking." "Yeah, well, humans do that. Especially when the princess they saved compares their connection to a cosmic explosion." Her expression softened, amusement fading into something gentler. "I did not mean to frighten you." "You didn't," he lied again. Her brow rose slightly. "Humans are terrible at deception. Only when talking to telepathic glow princesses," he muttered. She blinked, then laughed softly, a sound that made the cave feel warmer. "I'm not telepathic. The link makes impressions clearer, but I cannot read your thoughts." "Good," he said. "That would be embarrassing." The moment stretched, warm and fragile. But it couldn't last. They both knew that. Leora glanced toward the cave mouth. The Voidborn will sweep this area again when their patterns reset. We must move before they do. Agreed. Ethan stood, offering his hand. Can you walk? She considered, then nodded. If you steady me at first. He did. Her fingers slid into his hand, cool and smooth. The instant they touched, a faint glow pulsed between their palms. Not bright, but unmistakable. Ethan froze, breath catching. Leora's eyes widened slightly. The energy bridge remained stronger than I expected. He released her hand gently, flexing his fingers as if trying to shake off the warmth. It didn't fade. Is that a problem? No, she said, though the hesitation in her tone wasn't lost on him. But it means the universe is choosing a path for us. One we must walk together. He had no idea what that meant, but the way she said it made his pulse thrum. They stepped cautiously toward the cave entrance. Ethan moved first, crouching low and scanning the sky. The air smelled faintly metallic. Distant dust clouds rolled across the horizon like bruised thunderheads. But there were no drones, no humming engines. We move now, he whispered. Leora nodded and followed. The ridge looked worse in daylight. The broken spire of the Thaleri flagship rose like a jagged tooth against the sky. Shattered decks and half-melted corridors littered the slope in mangled ribbons. The air shimmered faintly with residual energy, the aftershocks of the ship's death throes. Your people built this, Ethan murmured as they passed a curved section of hull. The metal still glowed faintly, like embers buried in snow. I always thought Thaleri ships were unbreakable. No creation is unbreakable, Leora whispered. Her hand slid along the hull, fingers trembling. But we pour our memory into each vessel. Our ships are more than machines. They are extensions of our light. To see one fallen, Ethan's chest tightened. I'm sorry. She didn't respond. Instead, she turned to the debris before them. We must reach the central core. There is something inside the ship I must retrieve. Alarm shot through him. Leora, you can barely walk. And the Voidborn are still out here. We should head for my escape pod beacon, signal the Alliance for pickup. Her expression shifted. Regal, resolute, unyielding. Ethan, that core contains something the Voidborn cannot obtain. If they reach it first, they will unravel entire systems. My people, possibly yours. Let's stop him cold. What kind of something are we talking about? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. The luminous crown is symbolic, yes, but it is also technological. It holds our star maps, our histories, our genetic archives, everything. It was aboard this ship because I was aboard this ship. Your crown, Ethan blinked. That literal thing you wear? Yes, she said softly. And if the Voidborn take it, they gain understanding of how to extinguish light itself. He stared at her. Okay, yeah, that sounds worth protecting. It is why I was at the frontier. Why we took this path. Her gaze faltered. Why my people risked losing their princess. Ethan placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. Then we're getting it back. Something like relief flickered in her eyes. But before they could take another step, the ground trembled. Not a quake. Footsteps. Dozens of them. Ethan spun toward the far side of the ridge. Dark silhouettes emerged through the haze. Voidborn hunters, tall and skeletal, moving with unnatural precision. Their metallic limbs clicked, and strange violet sensors swept across the debris. Ethan, Leora whispered urgently, her fingers gripping his forearm. They have not detected us yet. If we move, they will. If we stay, they will. They locked eyes. We need the core, Ethan said. Yes. And to get it, we need to go through them. Leora drew a slow breath. Pain flickered through her, but resolve burned brighter. Then we use what we have. Our link. Our light, she corrected softly. Ethan swallowed hard. Will it hurt? Yes, she admitted. Probably both of us. But it will shield us long enough to reach the core. He nodded once. Then do it. She took his hand. This time, there was no hesitation. Their palms met, and the world blazed. Warmth surged through Ethan, deeper than anything he'd felt before. wrapping around his nerves like golden fire. Leora gasped but didn't let go. Their energies intertwined, forming a pulsing sphere of shimmering radiance that cloaked their forms entirely. Ethan felt her strength pour into him. Light, determination, fear, hope. Everything. She felt him in return, stubbornness, compassion, raw human grit. The Voidborn hunters paused mid-stride, their sensors whirring in confusion as the golden radiance drifted past them like a slow-moving sun. Leora leaned into Ethan, breathing hard. We have only moments. Then let's make them count. And together, hand in hand, light wrapped around them, they slipped through the army of void-born machines, unseen, toward the heart of the fallen flagship where the luminous crown waited. The moment they cleared the ridge, the light around them flickered sharply. Leora swayed. Ethan caught her instantly. "What's happening?" he whispered. "The Void-born," she trembled, voice thinning. They sensed the crown awakening. "They are accelerating." As if to confirm her words, a piercing shriek cut through the valley, a mechanical scream that made Ethan's blood run cold. "They are coming," Leora whispered, clutching his hand. "Not hunters. Not scouts." "Then what?" Ethan demanded. She turned toward him, eyes glowing fiercely. "War forms." The scream of the void-born war forms echoed through the valley like a metallic hurricane, rattling loose stones and vibrating straight through Ethan's bones. These weren't the skeletal scouts they'd slipped past. War forms were heavier, faster, relentless. Machines built for one purpose: obliteration. He didn't need a briefing file to understand the shift in the air. Everything felt tighter, sharper, like the world had pulled in a deep breath before a killing blow. Leora's grip tightened around his fingers, her light flickering dangerously. Even stable, her wound was far from healed, and their cloaking connection had drained her further. Ethan stepped closer, steadying her with an arm around her waist. "Can you hold a cloak?" he whispered. She shook her head, expression tense. "Not at this level of pursuit." Warforms cut through deception, their senses carve light apart. "Then we don't hide," Ethan said. "We move." Her eyes lifted to his, uncertain for a heartbeat, then resolute. To the core. The fallen Thaleri flagship loomed before them, its shattered spine rising like a dying colossus. They approached through the jagged remains of hallways and twisted beams, ducking beneath collapsed arches of glowing alloy. Every few steps, the ground trembled with the rhythmic approach of the warforms, closing in from behind. Ethan scanned ahead, spotting a narrow breach in the hull where white-silver plating had peeled open like the skin of a ruptured fruit. "In there," he said. Leora nodded, leaning heavily on his side as they slipped inside the ship's broken interior. What remained of the corridor glowed faintly, fragments of Thaleri light tech still alive after the crash. Glass-like panels cracked underfoot, each one releasing a small pulse of dying luminescence as they passed. Leora's expression darkened with every step. "Our ships are not meant to die," she whispered. "They are grown, shaped with light. When one falls, its memories scatter." Ethan glanced around the fractured corridor, half of it caved in, the other half flickering with fading energy. "It's still beautiful," he said quietly. She paused, meeting his gaze with faint surprise. "You see beauty in ruin?" "I see what's still alive in it," Ethan answered. "Even broken things can matter. Sometimes more than before." Her eyes softened, and for a moment, it seemed as though the surrounding glow brightened in response. But the fragile peace shattered when a heavy clang echoed through the corridor behind them. "Warforms," Ethan cursed under his breath. "Faster." Leora pushed forward, determination overriding pain. They reached a junction. 3 paths collapsed, one still partially intact. Through the intact passage glimmered a faint, rhythmic pulse. Golden white. Alive. Leora's breath caught. The core chamber. They hurried down the narrow walkway. The deeper they moved, the more the air hummed with radiant tension. The glow ahead shimmered like a heartbeat trapped in crystal. Then the corridor opened into a vast chamber, its dome fractured but still breathtaking, the walls etched with patterns of living light. In the center hovered a spherical construct, cracked but intact, its pulsating glow suspended between shattered support petals. The luminous crown, even damaged, its presence filled the air like a warm tide, brushing Ethan's skin with a sense of history, memory, and something else, something vast and ancient, like standing inside a star's dreaming mind. Leora's knees buckled. "Hey!" Ethan caught her before she fell. She pressed a trembling hand to her side, the seam of her wound pulsing erratically. "It feels me," she whispered, voice thin with awe and fear. "It calls for its bearer. It wants to restore itself." "Well, that's great," Ethan said. "If it wakes up faster, we can." A metallic roar cut him off. A war form slammed into the chamber behind them, its towering silhouette framed by sparks and dust. It stood 3 meters tall, its body an angular mass of black alloy veined with pulsing violet. Multi-jointed limbs clicked as its head turned, sensors locking onto them with razor precision. Ethan pushed Leora behind him on instinct. "Stay down." The warform's chest irised open, revealing a thrum of energy condensing into a weapon charge. Leora gasped. "Ethan!" He didn't hesitate. He grabbed a broken support beam from the floor and hurled it at the warform. The metal rod hit its sensor cluster with a clang, staggering it slightly, but not damaging it nearly enough. The warform charged its cannon, light building into a searing violet spear. Ethan's heart lurched. He had no weapon strong enough. No cover. No time. But Leora rose to her knees, eyes blazing. "Ethan, touch me." "What?" "My light. Your resonance. It can shield. But only together." The warform fired. Ethan flung himself toward Leora, pressing his palm to her wounded seam just as the blast hit. Golden light erupted around them, explosive, brilliant, encompassing. The chamber shook violently. Dust cascaded from the dome. Energy crackled through Ethan's nerves like lightning wrapped in warmth. He felt Leora's pain, rage, fear, and her immense, desperate will. The shield wasn't a barrier. It was a living fusion of their energies, flaring outward like wings of fire. The warform's beams struck the golden wave and scattered like shattered glass, exploding backward in a cascade of violet shock. Ethan collapsed to one knee, gasping, his hand still pressed over Leora's wound. She slumped forward, trembling but alive. The warform staggered, its chest sparking, sensors flickering. Not dead, but damaged. Ethan rose unsteadily. "We can't do that again. It's going to overload you." "Then we end this quickly," Leora whispered. She crawled toward the hovering crown, extending a trembling hand. As her fingers touched the sphere, golden light flared, gentler this time, enveloping her form like an embrace. The crown recognized her, accepted her, welcomed her. Energy pulsed through the chamber. The warform roared, correcting itself, preparing another charge. Ethan drew his knife, not much, but all he had, and planted himself between Leora and the machine. "Come on, then," he muttered, breath shaking. "Try me." The warform lunged, but the crown answered first. A pulse of golden radiance exploded outward. Not an attack, but a shockwave of pure information and memory. Ethan felt it wash through him like a silent symphony, full of the voices of generations. The warform froze mid-stride. Its sensors flickered. Its limbs twitched. The violet glow in its chest sputtered, confused, destabilized by an overload of alien data. Leora, eyes shining with renewed strength, rose slowly to her feet. "The crown has awakened," she said softly, power in her voice, "and it will not let them take me." The warform shrieked, distorted, frantic, and convulsed as golden energy wove into its systems, shorting its circuits. It collapsed in a thunder of metal and sparks. Silence fell. Ethan exhaled shakily, adrenaline melting into exhaustion. That was terrifying. Leora turned toward him fully now, the crown floating behind her like a luminous star. "And you," she whispered, stood between a war form and me with only a knife. He shrugged weakly. I've had worse days. No human would have survived that blast without our link, she murmured. You felt what I felt. You bore what I bore. Ethan looked at her, really looked, and saw not the injured alien princess he'd found under a wing of broken metal, but someone far stronger, far brighter, far more determined than anyone he'd ever met. Guess we're stuck with each other now, he said softly. Her expression softened into something warm, almost fragile. Yes, she whispered. We are bound now in light. But before either could say another word, the entire ship vibrated. Footsteps. Dozens. Hundreds. The war forms had found them. Leora's eyes widened. Ethan, the crown is awake, but I cannot wield it fully in this state. We must escape. He grabbed her hand. Then we run. But as they turned toward the exit, a towering shadow filled the corridor. A massive war form, twice the size of the one they defeated, stepped inside, its sensors burning violet fire. Leora inhaled sharply. That is not a war form. Then what is it? Ethan whispered. She swallowed hard. A Voidborn Prime. The Voidborn Prime stepped into the chamber like a moving void of metal and hunger, its presence swallowing the fractured glow of the Thaleri ship. It towered over the fallen war form. Nearly 5 meters tall, its body a latticework of obsidian alloy threaded with violent pulses of violet light. Unlike the others, it did not screech. It did not scan. It simply looked, and the air itself seemed to recoil. Leora froze beside Ethan, breath catching. They do not send primes to hunt, she whispered. They send primes to erase. Fantastic, Ethan muttered, shifting to put himself between her and the towering machine. I was worried today wouldn't be exciting enough. The prime tilted its elongated head, violet arrays rotating with eerie intelligence as it examined them. Then a tremor ran through the ship, an energy surge so intense Ethan felt it in his teeth. The prime raised one massive arm, plates unfolding to reveal a core of concentrated power crackling at its center. Leora's hand trembled in his. Its charge can vaporize entire corridors. Ethan, if it fires, the crown cannot protect us. Fear slammed into him, but he pushed it aside. Then we make sure it doesn't fire. He tightened his grip on her hand. For a moment, she stared at him as if memorizing him. If our link breaks under this strain, it won't. You do not know that. Maybe not, he said, but I know you, and I know me, and I know that we're not dying here. Not like this. A shiver ran through her. Fear or something deeper, but she nodded. Behind them, the crown pulsed with gathering strength, responding to Leora's awakening presence. But she was too wounded, too drained to wield it fully. Ethan stepped forward, holding her hand tightly. The prime completed its charge. Leora whispered, voice trembling, Ethan, hold me. He slid his arm around her waist as she pressed her forehead briefly to his temple. Their palms aligned over the seam of her wound, the point of their connection, their resonance. The crown sensed them both. It flared. A massive surge of golden light burst outward from the center of the chamber. Alive, radiant, singing with the memories and hope of a people who refused to vanish. The prime fired. The violet beam tore through the air with catastrophic force, just as the crown's radiance met it. The impact rocked the entire ship, a clash of void and light exploding into a storm of sparks and golden arcs. Ethan felt the shockwave slam into him, nearly knocking him off his feet, but Leora grabbed his face, forcing him to meet her glowing eyes. Do not let go, she whispered fiercely. Do not ever let go. He didn't. Their link flared, deepening in a way neither had felt before. Not just warmth, not just combined energy. Understanding. He felt her terror, her strength, her centuries-old memories woven into the crown. Her duty, her loneliness, her hope. She felt his determination, his stubborn defiance, his endless human will to stand in front of danger, even when the odds made no sense. Their energies intertwined, and the crown reacted with a brilliance so intense the chamber lit like the heart of a newborn star. The prime staggered. The violet beam fractured, splintering into harmless shards of energy. Ethan gasped, nearly collapsing, but Leora held him upright, their foreheads pressed together, sharing breath, sharing strength. And then, the crown sang. A pure, resonant tone filled the air, vibrating through Ethan's chest, through Leora's bones, through the molten heart of the ship. Light surged outward, expanding into sweeping arcs that wrapped around the prime like golden ribbons. The machine roared, an alien sound of rage and refusal, as its limbs jerked, its power destabilizing under the flood of radiant information. Leora's voice rose softly, breathlessly. The crown is rewriting it, overriding its void algorithms. Ethan could barely breathe. Can it finish the job? Yes, she whispered, gripping his hand tighter. But only if we stay connected. Only if the crown feels both of us. Their combined energy flared brighter. The prime's violet core flickered violently, shadows warping across its frame. The crown's golden radiance laced through its circuitry, burning away its void-born coating and replacing it with living light. The prime twisted, convulsed, and with one final roar that shook the mountain ridge, it collapsed to its knees, then fell forward, its massive body crashing into the chamber floor like a toppled titan. Silence followed, stunned, trembling, fragile. The light around Ethan and Leora dimmed gently, returning to a soft glow. Ethan sagged to the floor, chest heaving. Please tell me that was the big one. Leora knelt beside him, her hands still clasped in his. That was the prime. There is no greater void-born form. Good, he muttered, lying back against a piece of warm, glowing hull. Because I'm officially out of hero juice. She laughed, a small, exhausted sound, and sank beside him. For a while, they simply breathed, leaning against each other in the soft hum of the crown's radiant presence. Then Leora lifted her gaze to him, expression shifting, gentle, luminous, unreadable. You risked your life, she whispered. Again, for me, for my people, for a world not your own. Ethan shrugged weakly. Earth doesn't do half measures. Her hand rose hesitantly, then cupped his cheek, cool and warm at the same time. Our energies should not have aligned so deeply. It is unprecedented. Is that bad? It is strange, she murmured with a faint smile. And beautiful. The crown pulsed, floating closer to them, its golden light swirling softly as though acknowledging their connection. Outside, the distant hum of war forms faded, confused, directionless, their prime destroyed. They had time. Not much, but enough. Ethan shifted closer, brushing his thumb over Leora's hand. So what happens now? She exhaled slowly. Now we survive, together, and we carry the crown back to my people. They will need you, Ethan Hale. Not because of your resonance, because of your heart. He felt heat rise to his face. Princess, call me Leora, she whispered. Leora. Her eyes softened, glowing with a gentle warmth that spread through him like golden starlight. And when this war ends, I would share with you the sky of my home, one that shines brighter than anything Earth has ever seen. He smiled, tired but sincere. I'd like that. She leaned her head gently against his shoulder. Above them, cracks in the dome revealed a sky slowly clearing, clouds parting to reveal thin rays of morning light. Her voice drifted through the quiet. You held me when I was dying, she murmured. You brought my light back, and I will not forget it for as long as my star burns. Ethan closed his eyes, letting the warmth of her presence settle deep into him. I'm not going anywhere, he whispered, and as they sat together in the ruins of a fallen starship, hand in hand, shadow and light intertwined, the crown floated above them, pulsing softly like a promise of dawn, of healing, of a future forged in shared light.